anything that moves. That's what I heard.
For fun.
All right, for fun. Yeah. All right, there's a police department in the mall, which is good. But there are also guns at Fort Hood, and there are police officers at places that may show up later. How do you feel about the idea of concealed permits being in public places?
I think that I'm for the police being armed at the mall, at the very least.
Right.
On concealed carry, I can see being for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't personally have one, obviously, because I live in New York City, but I don't know. That's just a personal thing for me. I don't have one. I don't even know if I would have one anywhere else. But now I just realized I've just labeled myself as a gun-free zone, and I'm referring back to your monologue, and I think I need to have a sticker that says, I have a gun.
You carry a squirt gun filled with very hot tea. Anybody comes at you, just squirt it right in the eyes. All right, Juan, I know what you're already going to say. Do Americans need to arm themselves in the face of new terror, or is this NRA-fueled paranoia?
NRA-fueled, in your hot tea in your eyes, paranoia.
Yes.
You know, I mean, the reality is, look, they've always been bad guys out there. I think the mall had to go back, though, and say that there was misinterpretation of the concealed carry law in Minnesota because they were telling people at the door, don't bring your guns, and apparently people are allowed to do that. But my point to you is, you know what, you and I are not coming up against ISIS over here on 6th Avenue. What we come up against most often, I think it's now half of most of the killings in this country are done by family. And another third are people involved with drug deals and robberies. So, I mean, you know, it's like this guy, there was a story in the paper today about a guy who was a policeman out in White Plains. He shot both daughters, then killed himself, suicide. That's what goes on with guns. That's why I think it's NRA. Can I jump in and stop it?
Well, no, first I want to point out that you are suffering from, again, ocean privilege. Because you live over here and not over there, it's not a problem.
You started to comment on what the reality is, and spewed nothing but, in fact, there was no reality in anything you said. Here's the real reality.
That's kind of mean.
Here are the numbers. Pew Research, you're okay with their research? Pew? Yeah, they're right. Over the last 20 years, the gun ownership has peaked right now at its highest level in 22 years at 47% of households have a gun. Over that same period of time, Pew and the Federal Bureau of Statistics says violent crimes, including murder, have plummeted 49%. Violent crimes, not non-murder, but with gun, have plummeted 75%. So as we arm ourselves in America, our violent crime rate is plummeting. Therefore, the reality is more guns means a safer America. Boy, that's some flawed logic. You mean you think that better policing, more guns, a different society? You mean you don't think anything but guns is the reason for that?
No, but this is what's called, Juan, a hate fact. It's a fact that you hate.
Right.
But there's a lot of research. John Lott has done a lot of research looking at specific gun control laws, and they find that permits are the only way that or correlated to reduced crime. I want to ask Kimberly, though, speaking of John Lott.
I like that because you regulate it, you have it identified, you know who has what gun, where, and you have certain standards and practices.
Yeah, and also John Lott has this great article coming out, I think, tonight in the Chicago Sun-Times. And he talks about how people like Elliot Rodger, who was a spree killer, which is essentially almost no different than a terrorist attack, and that he actively looked in Santa Barbara for a place where there weren't any guns and lamented in his manifesto that he chose his targets based on people not being armed. He worried about being shot. So that's what terrorists do.
Well, of course. So that's why they go to places that they think would be good soft targets. It's attractive to them, gun-free zones, whether it's movie theaters or whether it's schools or someplace, whether it's, elementary schools or even a college like Virginia Tech. These are the places that jump out at us from the headlines. I mean, look, this is a right that Americans have in the Second Amendment. People are going to have to deal with it, but responsibly. I think if we just turned a blind eye to it, ban guns, this and that. No, how about responsible gun ownership? The guns aren't the ones taking the lives. It's the people that are deciding to pull the trigger. So make sure you know who has the guns, whether or not they should have them, do proper background checks like we have in place, and let's take care of it that way. But don't get hysterical and start blaming guns because then you show and it belies your ignorance. Who has the gun? Who makes the choice? Yes, gang members, terrorists, we don't want them to have guns, but now you're telling me the problem is the law-abiding citizens shouldn't have it? That's the disconnect.
Let's go to this is some sound on tape of Minnesota State Rep Tony Cornish on gun-free zones at the Mall of America.
The situation with Mall of America is completely ridiculous. It's just the opposite of what they should be doing. If we're threatened with an attack of any type, the last thing you ever want to do is disarm citizens. But basically, they're making a killing zone. If I were a terrorist, the first place that I would look to go to inflict harm or mass casualties would be a place where people were unarmed.
Dana, I don't believe that the government is out to take away guns. I think the point here is that advertising a gun-free zone is possibly the most idiotic thing you could ever do. Even if it was gun-free, lie.
Right, well, which was a mistake I made in my first answer, right after your monologue, in saying that I don't have a weapon.
Yes.
I think that we should want people criminals or terrorists, or if I understand the point about the family one. I think that is, and I do think that is a concern of a separate issue. But if you're talking about a big area where there are there's a lot of activity, a lot of innocent people concentrated in one area, exercising their right of capitalism, right, at the mall. That's why these types of targets should be protected. Yes, of course we should advertise that they're protected. Yeah. I would rather say that than not. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Right, so yeah, let's lie.
Even when the mall is saying something else, it endangers the consumers there because they're saying these people aren't armed.
You know, inevitably, the one reason why there will not be a jihad, there won't be a holy war on American soil against Americans, is because there's 300 million firearms in America.
Oh my God! Does that stop the Twin Towers?
No, I didn't say there won't be attacks, Juan. I said that the jihad will never happen on our turf because no terrorist organization is stupid enough to try and take on America when we have the Second Amendment.
You know, this is so
wild.
You know what? You sound like
the sense the one.
No, it doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. You know, I sometimes come up and get,
You're saying like an armed jihad.
No, but I'm saying, you think back to other periods of unrest in American history. You know, the police and the military, they have the most weapons. They're the ones that have the guns. Okay, but no, actually they don't.
But how many is there?
No, I'm talking. If you want to know who's armed, sometimes go visit your U.S. military. I'll tell you that.
I think what's the point?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think that the police and the military should have guns.
So why?
But you're saying, oh no, every citizen. It's better if all of us on the 5 had a gun. Including
I want that.
No. You know why? Because then I get shot first. No, I just don't think that makes sense. That everybody in the mall has a gun. Let the police protect us.
No, I think that you know what? This is not an either or. Like everybody's armed and everybody's not. The concealed permit it creates a level of uncertainty on the people that are choosing an attack. It's basically saying there's an extra variable that is unknown. For example, a uniformed police officer, if you're planning an attack, you see the uniform, you wait until the uniform leaves, or you choose another target. But I don't know if Juan Williams is armed or Eric Bolling is armed.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
So about the lying part, yeah, gotta lie.
Yeah.
On my old house, massive signs, beware of dogs, like this is like
always beware of dogs.
And my dog's like this and
I want to put
he's accused of being a stuffed animal, but that's what people do. They say armed by ADT, security level, all
of
that.
My gun right on my window. Right there it is. You want? But let me just ask, are you guys really saying that at Sandy Hook all the kids should have guns?
No, we're not. You're saying that.
What I'm saying, that's so ridiculous. Everybody should have a gun. You go into the military, Fort Hood.
Liberals use tragedies to push gun control.
The old left-wing thing where you put words in people's mouths.
Oh, no, I don't have to put words in your mouth. Your words are so, I think, on point. So you made a cogent argument for guns everywhere. Now I say, hey, Greg, you made an argument for everybody having a gun. Oh, no, I didn't say that.
No, I didn't say, let's give guns to children.
You said give everybody
Who
wants an attack at a school? You said if they had guns, that would be less likely a target.
You got me, Juan. I said babies should have guns.
Yeah,
I said it here, America. We should arm it's an infantry.
Yes.
Guns.
Yes. In fact, the bad guy started this the other day.
Get him in the fetus.
Yeah.
When they're in the womb, get little guns.
What about saying a unicorn army?
There you go.
There we go.
That's another story.